The call ended, but neither Dennis nor AMAKA moved for several seconds. Each remained on opposite sides of the mansion, smiling to themselves as they held their phones against their hearts. For Dennis, every difficult chapter of his life suddenly felt worthwhile. For AMAKA, every tear she had cried as an abandoned young woman now seemed like a distant memory. Everything had led to this day. The day she would stop being the forgotten girl who worked as a maid. The day she would become Mrs. Dennis Okafor. Inside the bridal suite, Becky carefully inspected AMAKA's makeup one final time. "Perfect," she whispered. She adjusted the delicate veil over AMAKA's hair before stepping back. Even she could not hide her admiration. "You truly look like a queen." AMAKA smiled shyly. "I don't feel like one." "You should." Becky laughed softly. "You have no idea how beautiful you are." Just then, Kaisi entered carrying a small bouquet of white roses. She froze the moment she saw AMAKA. Her eyes immediately filled with tears. "Sister." AMAKA turned. "What is it?" "You are so beautiful." Kaisi covered her mouth as tears rolled freely down her cheeks. "I've never seen anyone this beautiful before." AMAKA walked over carefully and hugged her. "Don't cry. I can't help it." Kaisi laughed through her tears. "You deserve every happiness in this world." AMAKA held her tightly. "I only pray this happiness lasts forever." "It will." Neither of them noticed the brief shadow that crossed Becky's face after AMAKA said those words. Outside the mansion, luxury vehicles continued arriving one after another. Although Dennis had honored AMAKA's wish for a private ceremony, the guest list still included respected business leaders, close family friends, traditional elders, and a handful of trusted executives from M&S Group. Everyone had been personally invited. No journalists, no television cameras, no celebrities seeking attention, only those who genuinely loved the couple. The peaceful atmosphere was exactly what AMAKA had wished for. Willie stood near the entrance, greeting each guest with a warm smile. He wore a tailored navy blue suit and looked happier than anyone else. Several employees approached him. "So it's finally happening." Willie laughed. "I've been waiting longer than both of them." Another colleague smiled. "Our boss has changed." "He has." Willie nodded proudly. Before AMAKA entered his life, work was everything. And now he actually smiles. Everyone laughed. Inside his private suite, Dennis adjusted his cufflinks before looking at himself in the mirror. His father quietly entered. For a few moments neither man spoke. Then his father walked closer. "You look exactly like your grandfather on his wedding day." Dennis smiled. "I've seen the photographs." "He loved your grandmother the same way you love AMAKA." His father placed a hand on Dennis' shoulder. "You've chosen well." "Thank you, father. I owe that girl more than words." Dennis looked surprised. "You do." The older man nodded slowly. "You were alive before. But after meeting AMAKA, you began living." Dennis looked away, trying to hide his emotions. His father smiled knowingly. "Don't ruin your suit with tears." Dennis laughed. "I'm trying not to." Meanwhile, Nanny Linda was helping AMAKA drink fresh fruit juice. Slowly, AMAKA obeyed. "The babies have been active since morning." Linda gently placed her hand on AMAKA's stomach. "They already know today is special." AMAKA smiled. "They've been kicking since I woke up. They're celebrating with their parents." The room filled with gentle laughter. Suddenly, AMAKA placed one hand against her forehead. Linda immediately noticed. "Headache?" "A little." "Sit down." "I'm okay." "No." Linda guided her carefully onto a comfortable chair. "You've been standing too long." AMAKA obeyed without argument. Linda checked her pulse. "It's probably exhaustion. I don't want Dennis to worry." "Then rest for 15 minutes. AMAKA nodded. "I will." At the traditional reception area, Dennis' family presented every item requested for the bride price. The elders carefully inspected each one. Bags of rice, yams, traditional fabrics, jewelry, palm wine, livestock. Everything had been provided, and much more. One elderly chief laughed loudly. "My son, we have never seen anyone complete a bride price list this generously." Dennis smiled respectfully. My wife is priceless. Another elder nodded approvingly. This young man truly honors our tradition. AMAKA's stepmother looked around in amazement. She had expected negotiations. Instead, Dennis had exceeded every expectation without complaining once. For the first time in many years, guilt quietly settled inside her heart. She remembered every harsh word she had spoken to AMAKA, every unnecessary punishment, every insult. Yet despite everything, this same daughter had renovated their family home, paid for her younger siblings' education, and never sought revenge. She lowered her head. Perhaps she had misunderstood AMAKA all along. Not everyone at the ceremony shared the joyful atmosphere. Several kilometers away, inside an expensive hotel suite, Lucas Doris paced angrily across the room. Beside her sat Rosa Adele. Neither woman had recovered from their humiliation at M&S Group. Their careers had collapsed. Their reputations had been destroyed. Everything because of one woman. AMAKA. Lucas slammed her glass onto the table. She's getting married today. Rosa remained silent. Do you know what hurts the most? What? They're celebrating while we lost everything. Rosa finally looked up. What exactly do you want? Lucas' expression slowly hardened. They took our future. We take theirs. Rosa stared at her. You still haven't given up? Lucas smiled coldly. I never lose. She opened her handbag and removed a second mobile phone. I've been waiting for the perfect day. You planned something? Lucas simply dialed a number. After several rings, someone answered. Everything is ready. Lucas looked toward the window overlooking the city. Good. Wait until the ceremony begins. Then follow my instructions. She ended the call. Rosa suddenly felt uneasy. What have you done? Lucas smiled without answering. Back at the mansion, Dennis entered the beautifully decorated chapel. White flowers lined both sides of the aisle. Soft golden lights illuminated every corner. Elegant music floated gently through the hall. Guests slowly stood as he walked toward the altar. He greeted everyone politely before taking his place. His hands were calm. But inside his heart raced like never before. Willie leaned closer. Nervous. Dennis smiled. Terrified. You negotiated billion-dollar investments without shaking. This is different. How? Dennis looked toward the entrance. I'm about to receive the greatest blessing of my life. Willie grinned. You really love her. More than my own life. Sure. Becky helped AMAKA into her wedding gown. Everyone in the room fell silent. The dress fit perfectly. Its flowing fabric gracefully concealed her growing pregnancy, while highlighting her natural elegance. Linda smiled proudly. The babies already have the most beautiful mother. Kaisi wiped away fresh tears. I can't stop crying today. AMAKA laughed. You'll make everyone think I'm leaving the country. No. Kaisi hugged her again. I'm just so proud of you. Becky handed AMAKA a small mirror. When AMAKA finally looked at herself, she barely recognized the woman staring back. The frightened village girl. The exhausted maid. The lonely housekeeper. She was gone. Standing before her was a confident woman surrounded by love. She whispered quietly, Thank you, God. Outside, dark clouds unexpectedly gathered across the sky. Several guests looked upward. It wasn't supposed to rain today. Another guest checked his phone. The forecast said sunshine. Within minutes, a cool wind swept across the gardens. Decorative ribbons fluttered violently. Willie frowned. This weather changed too quickly. Dennis also noticed. Move the outdoor reception indoors if necessary. Already working on it. Staff members immediately began adjusting the arrangements. The unexpected weather caused minor confusion but nothing serious. At least not yet. Meanwhile, a black SUV slowly approached the mansion gates. The security guard stepped forward. One lowered the window. Invitation, please. The driver smiled politely and handed over an envelope. The guard examined it carefully. Everything appeared genuine. He nodded. You may proceed. The gate opened. The SUV rolled quietly inside. No one noticed the passenger seated in the back wearing dark sunglasses. The passenger watched the mansion carefully, without saying a word, without showing any expression. Inside the bridal suite, AMAKA suddenly froze. Linda noticed immediately. What happened? The babies. What about them? They stopped kicking. Everyone became quiet. AMAKA gently rubbed her stomach. They've been moving all morning. Linda knelt beside her. Don't panic. She placed her hand gently against AMAKA's abdomen. After several anxious seconds, a tiny kick landed against her palm. Linda smiled. There. Another kick followed. Then another. They're fine. AMAKA released the breath she had unknowingly been holding. I scared myself. Linda helped her stand. They're simply resting. AMAKA smiled weakly. I think they're already as stubborn as their father. Everyone burst into laughter. The wedding coordinator entered. It's time. Silence immediately filled the room. This was it. Becky adjusted the veil once more. Linda straightened the bouquet. Kaisi squeezed AMAKA's hand. You ready? AMAKA looked around at every woman who had stood beside her throughout the journey. Then she nodded slowly. I'm ready. Downstairs. Every guest had taken their seats. The minister stood patiently at the altar. Dennis' eyes never left the entrance. His breathing became slower. His heart pounded louder with every passing second. The chapel doors slowly opened. Sunlight poured inside. Everyone stood. The first bridesmaids appeared. Then Kaisi. Then Linda. Finally, AMAKA stepped through the doorway. The entire hall fell into complete silence. Even Dennis forgot to breathe. She looked radiant, elegant, peaceful. Every step she took seemed to erase every painful memory they had ever endured. Dennis felt tears gather in his eyes. Willie whispered beside him, Don't cry before the vows. Dennis smiled through the emotion. I'm trying. AMAKA looked directly at him. Nothing else existed. Not the guests. Not the decorations. Not the ceremony. Only Dennis. She slowly began walking down the aisle. Halfway there, a loud crash echoed from somewhere outside the chapel. The guests turned in alarm. Security guards suddenly rushed past the entrance. Someone shouted from outside, Stop that vehicle. Dennis instinctively stepped forward. AMAKA froze where she stood. The peaceful atmosphere shattered within seconds. Guests instinctively stood from their seats as security officers rushed toward the entrance of the chapel. Outside, several members of Dennis' private security team sprinted across the courtyard toward the speeding black SUV. Dennis immediately stepped down from the altar. His first instinct was not to investigate. It was to protect AMAKA. He hurried toward the aisle. Nobody panic, he shouted. His voice remained firm despite the uncertainty. The minister also raised his hands. Please remain calm. AMAKA stood frozen beneath her veil. Her heart pounded violently. Linda hurried beside her. It's okay. What is happening? We don't know yet. Dennis finally reached her. Without hesitation, he wrapped one protective arm around her shoulders. You're safe. She looked into his eyes. Dennis. I'm here. He gently touched her cheek. No matter what happens, nobody will touch you. She nodded, trying to steady her breathing. I trust you. Outside the chapel, the SUV came to a sudden stop near the fountain. 6 heavily built security officers immediately surrounded it. Their leader pointed toward the driver. Turn off the engine. The engine died. Hands where we can see them. The driver's door slowly opened. A middle-aged man wearing a chauffeur's uniform stepped out with both hands raised. I don't understand. Who are you? I'm a hired driver. What are you doing here? I was instructed to deliver a special wedding gift. The security chief frowned. A wedding gift? Yes. He slowly pointed toward the back seat. It's inside. Another guard carefully opened the rear passenger door. There was no passenger. Only a beautifully wrapped wooden chest decorated with white ribbons. The guards exchanged confused glances. Check it. One officer carefully lifted the lid. Inside were expensive baby clothes, tiny knitted shoes, silver feeding spoons. A handwritten greeting card rested neatly on top. The security chief removed it. He read silently before sighing with relief. It says. He looked at the others. To Dennis and AMAKA. Congratulations on your growing family. Forgive my inability to attend personally. Everyone relaxed slightly. So why were you speeding? The driver looked embarrassed. I realized I entered through the wrong driveway. You almost caused panic. I'm terribly sorry. The security chief remained cautious. Searched the entire vehicle. Minutes later another officer returned. Nothing suspicious. Still, something about the situation felt wrong. The security chief looked around the property once more. His instincts refused to settle. Inside another vehicle parked nearly 200 meters away beyond the estate walls, Lucas Doris lowered a pair of binoculars. A disappointed smile appeared on her face. They're more prepared than I expected. Beside her sat a man wearing a baseball cap. What now? Lucas remained calm. The first distraction wasn't supposed to succeed. You planned this. I planned several things. She looked toward the mansion. The real game hasn't even begun. Back inside the chapel, Willie entered quietly and whispered into Dennis' ear. False alarm. Dennis exhaled deeply. What happened? A delivery vehicle entered too fast. That's all. So far. Dennis glanced toward AMAKA. She still looked shaken. We're increasing security anyway. Already done. Dennis nodded. Nobody tells AMAKA unnecessary details. Understood. The guests slowly returned to their seats. Conversations became quieter than before. Although everyone tried smiling again, an invisible tension remained in the air. The minister smiled warmly. I believe love has already defeated our first interruption today. Light laughter spread across the hall. The atmosphere slowly recovered. Dennis looked toward AMAKA. My queen. She smiled back. I'm okay now. Shall we continue? She nodded. I've waited 7 months for this moment. So have I. This time AMAKA resumed walking down the aisle. Every step felt more emotional than before. She could barely hold back tears. Dennis stood waiting with eyes filled with admiration. As she finally reached him, he gently accepted her hand. Neither spoke immediately. They simply looked at one another. The minister smiled knowingly. I have officiated weddings for over 30 years. He looked at both of them. But rarely have I seen two people looking at each other the way you are now. Soft laughter echoed among the guests. Dennis never looked away from AMAKA. I've dreamed about this every day. So have I. The minister began. Dear family and friends, today we gather not merely to witness a marriage, but to celebrate a journey. He turned toward the couple. Love is never measured by wealth. It is measured by sacrifice. He looked at Dennis. This groom opened his home to someone he believed needed work. Then toward AMAKA. This bride entered that home carrying burdens no one else could see. They met as employer and employee. They stand before us today as equals. Several guests nodded emotionally. They have weathered misunderstanding. They have endured betrayal. They have survived jealousy. And through every trial, they chose each other. Dennis gently squeezed AMAKA's hand. She squeezed back. The minister smiled. Now let us hear from the groom. Dennis stepped slightly forward. He removed a folded piece of paper from his jacket, then smiled. I actually wrote something. The guest chuckled. Willie whispered to another executive. Our boss wrote a speech. I never thought I'd live to see this. Dennis unfolded the paper, then looked at AMAKA instead. I don't need this. He folded it again. Everyone smiled. He spoke directly from his heart. AMAKA, when you first entered my house, I thought I was hiring someone to clean my home. I never imagined God was sending someone to heal my heart. AMAKA's eyes immediately became wet. You brought laughter into empty rooms. You brought peace into chaos. You loved my family when they didn't deserve it. You forgave people who hurt you. You carried our children with strength that amazes me every day. He paused. His voice trembled slightly. I promise before God. I will protect you. I will honor you. I will never make you feel alone. I will choose you every morning. And every night. For the rest of my life. By now many guests were wiping away tears. Even the minister quietly reached for his handkerchief. Dennis smiled softly. I loved you yesterday. I love you today. I'll still love you when we're old, wrinkled, and arguing over whose grandchildren visit more often. Gentle laughter filled the chapel. I love you, AMAKA. Forever. The minister looked toward AMAKA. My daughter. Your vows. AMAKA accepted the microphone with trembling hands. She took a deep breath. Then smiled through tears. Dennis. I've practiced this speech every night. But standing here, I forgot everything. Soft laughter echoed again. She looked directly into his eyes. The only thing I remember is how you make me feel. She placed one hand over her growing stomach. I grew up believing I would never be enough. I believed nobody would ever truly choose me. You changed that. You never saw a maid. You saw me. Her tears finally rolled freely. You never laughed at my dreams. You built them. You never judged my scars. You kissed them. You accepted my unborn babies before they even took their first breath. Dennis quietly wiped his own eyes. I promise to stand beside you. When business becomes difficult. When life becomes painful. When old age comes. When joy comes. When sorrow comes. I'll still be here. She smiled beautifully. You once called yourself my king. But today, I proudly call myself your queen. I love you. Forever. The applause lasted nearly a full minute. The rings were brought forward by Dennis' young cousin. He proudly held the velvet box with both hands. Dennis took AMAKA's ring first. His hands shook noticeably. Willie laughed quietly. The billionaire is nervous. Dennis smiled. I've negotiated with presidents. This is harder. Everyone laughed. He gently slid the ring onto AMAKA's finger. It fits perfectly. AMAKA picked up Dennis' ring. She looked at it for a moment, then slowly placed it onto his finger. There. She smiled. Now you can't escape. Dennis grinned. I never wanted to. The minister raised both hands. By the authority given to me, I now pronounce you. Just then, one of Dennis' security officers hurried into the chapel. He stopped himself from speaking loudly. But Dennis immediately noticed his worried expression. The officer gestured urgently. Willie intercepted him before he reached the altar. What is it? The officer whispered quickly. Willie's smile disappeared. You sure? We confirmed it. Dennis noticed immediately. What happened? Willie hesitated. It can wait. No. Dennis frowned. Tell me. Willie stepped closer. Our surveillance team found something. What? The driver who delivered that gift. He disappeared. Dennis' expression hardened. What do you mean disappeared? He left the vehicle. And vanished. Dennis looked toward the chapel entrance. Search every inch of this property. Already happening. No guest leaves. Willie nodded. Understood. AMAKA quietly touched Dennis's arm. What is it? Dennis immediately forced a reassuring smile. Nothing you need to worry about. She knew him too well. You only smile like that when something is wrong. He gently kissed her forehead. I'll explain later. The minister looked uncertain. Should we continue? Dennis looked around. His instincts screamed that something invisible was unfolding. But he refused to let fear steal this moment from AMAKA. He nodded. Please continue. The minister smiled again. As I was saying, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride. Dennis slowly lifted AMAKA's veil. The entire chapel stood once more. Their eyes met. Everything else disappeared. He gently placed one hand against her face. I love you, Mrs. Okafor. I love you too, Mr. Okafor. He leaned forward and kissed her softly as applause erupted throughout the chapel. Flowers showered the aisle. Smiles filled every face. For one perfect moment, happiness completely overwhelmed every fear. The applause continued long after Dennis and AMAKA shared their first kiss as husband and wife. For a brief moment, nothing else mattered. Not the business empire Dennis managed. Not the enemies they had made. Not the betrayals they had survived. Only love. The minister smiled warmly as he raised their joined hands before the congregation. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great joy to present to you for the very first time, Mr. and Mrs. Dennis Okafor. The hall erupted into cheers. Guests rose to their feet once more, clapping enthusiastically. Dennis looked at AMAKA with eyes full of admiration. You've finally become my wife. AMAKA laughed softly through happy tears. And you finally stopped calling me your future wife. I'll find something even sweeter. Oh, my forever queen. She smiled. I like that. He leaned closer. I knew you would. Willie approached the newlyweds, grinning from ear to ear. Boss. Dennis turned. Congratulations. Willie embraced him warmly before carefully hugging AMAKA. I'm so happy for both of you. Thank you, Willie, AMAKA replied. You've been family from the beginning. Willie smiled proudly. I'll always be family. The minister invited everyone toward the reception hall, where lunch had been prepared. The guests slowly made their way outside. Musicians played gentle traditional melodies as the wedding procession moved across the beautifully decorated gardens. Colorful flowers lined the walkways. Crystal lanterns hung from elegant white arches. Children laughed while chasing one another across the green lawns. Everything looked exactly as AMAKA had imagined. Simple, elegant, peaceful. Dennis kept one arm around her the entire time. You okay? I'm perfect. The babies. They've been kicking since we kissed. Dennis laughed. I think they're celebrating. I think so too. Inside the reception hall, the newlyweds were welcomed with another standing ovation. A magnificent table had been prepared at the front. Unlike many extravagant weddings, the decorations focused more on warmth and luxury. Fresh flowers, soft golden lights, family photographs displayed along one wall. One particular photograph immediately caught AMAKA's attention. It was an old picture taken months earlier. She stood in a simple maid's uniform, smiling awkwardly beside Dennis in his office after receiving her promotion. She laughed. You kept that. Dennis smiled. I framed every important moment. She looked around. There were more. The day she received her assistant manager appointment. The first ultrasound of the twins. A picture of them laughing in the kitchen while making breakfast together. Another during their quiet evening walk in the garden. AMAKA covered her mouth. You kept all of these? They remind me how blessed I am. She hugged him tightly. I don't deserve you. Dennis gently shook his head. No. I don't deserve you. Meanwhile, outside the reception hall, the missing chauffeur quietly removed his fake mustache inside a nearby restroom. He changed into the uniform of one of the catering staff. A small communication device rested inside his ear. A calm voice spoke. Status. He adjusted the serving tray in front of him. I'm inside. Any suspicion? Minimal. What about the target? I have visual confirmation. Proceed carefully. The line disconnected. The man calmly picked up several glasses of fruit juice before walking toward the reception hall. His face blended perfectly among dozens of catering employees. Nobody looked twice. Back inside, the master of ceremonies stepped onto the stage. Ladies and gentlemen. He smiled brightly. Today we celebrate not only a marriage, but a remarkable journey. He invited several close family members to share short messages. Dennis' father spoke first. My son. He stood proudly before everyone. When your mother passed away years ago, I worried that loneliness would harden your heart forever. He looked toward AMAKA. Then God sent you. You restored my son. Turning toward Dennis again, he smiled. Take care of her. I will. Protect those children. With my life. His father nodded proudly before returning to his seat. The applause echoed once again. Kaisi was invited next. She walked nervously toward the microphone. I've never spoken before so many people. Guests smiled encouragingly. She looked directly at AMAKA. When I was little, I thought kindness made people weak. She paused. Then I watched my sister. No matter how badly people treated her, she continued loving them. I used to wonder why. Her voice became emotional. Today I finally understand. Kindness isn't weakness. It's strength. She smiled through tears. Sister, you didn't just change your own life. You changed mine. The audience applauded warmly. Even AMAKA wiped away fresh tears.